6:30. Recovery efforts continued in D.C. today after a military helicopter collides with an American Airlines flight.
We most likely had a multitude of different issues.
Tonight, the latest on the investigation and an Ohio connection to the tragedy.
Plus, a new statewide grant helping the Ohio University Police Department keep students safe, and how officials plan to use the money.
And in sports, the high school basketball regular season is almost over. See where teams stand in the TVC. Newswatch starts right now.
Day 2 of recovery efforts conclude in the nation's capital. Good evening. I'm Ariel Teproot.
And I'm Alex Imwali. Today I brought more information about just what happened in Wednesday's deadly plane crash. This is a look at dramatic new video of the crash. As you can see, the Black Hawk helicopter seems to cross behind the American Eagle flight from Wichita, Kansas. Then moments later, the two crashed, leading to a major explosion. All 64 people on the flight and 3 service members on the helicopter have been pronounced dead. So far, 40 bodies have been recovered from the wreckage at the bottom of the Potomac River.
Investigators say it is still unclear how the crash happened. Yesterday at a press conference, President Donald Trump pointed the finger at previous administrations and DEI programs. The NTSB says they will remain impartial in the investigative process.
The Navy will be assisting with the recovery operations and are expected to be on site in the morning. They will be working in conjunction with the D.C. Medical Office.
As first responders and federal aviation investigators continue their somber work of victim and evidence recovery today, the FAA is taking on one of its strongest actions yet to reduce the risk of mid-air collisions in the congested and complicated airspace around Reagan National Airport.
Brian Abel brings us more, including what some former pilots are focusing on amid speculation on a possible cause.
The low-altitude helicopter corridor near D.C.'s Reagan National Airport is closed indefinitely, says the FAA. The agency shut down what's known as Route 4 this morning as the investigation into Wednesday's deadly collision between an Army Black Hawk helicopter and an American Airlines jet continues.
We most likely had a multitude of different issues, whether it be from understanding where a plane is, what our altitude is, what the speed is.
Answers that could be in the jet's flight data and voice recorders, known as black boxes, recovered last night. Some aviation industry experts and former pilots are focusing on the Army Black Hawk, which mirrors a report in the New York Times that suggests the helicopter may have been flying higher than it should have been, and possibly outside of its approved path on the Route 4 corridor. That means at or below 200 feet above sea level.
I've flown this route too many times to count. You stair step down your altitude and you keep that 200 feet plus or minus, 10, 20 feet.
It's possible with all the reflections of the light being over the water that they crept up.
The change of runway for the American Airlines jet could also be a factor.
It could have drifted them a little bit further into the path of that Black Hawk if there was some altitude discrepancy that the Black Hawk wasn't holding.
The preliminary NTSB report could come in 30 days. Final findings may take a year.
We're not going to put something out quick just so we can end some speculation.
Reporting for Newswatch, Brian Abel at Reagan National Airport.
As the country awaits more information on how this crash happens, efforts continue to recover the bodies of those who died in the crash.
And tonight we are learning more about 2 people who had an Ohio connection. 22-year-old Grace Maxwell was one of those who died in the crash. She was a junior at Cedarville University and was returning to Ohio after attending her grandfather's funeral in Wichita.
The university said in a statement, "This has been a difficult time for the university community," adding, quote, "As you can imagine, as a university, we do not desire to turn this tragic event into anything more than a way to honor Grace." Another person who lost their life in the crash is Elizabeth Keys, who died on her birthday. Keys was from the Cincinnati area.
Chris Arnold spoke to those who knew Keys about how they are remembering her tonight.
You feel for those involved and their families, and it's somebody's lives are getting turned upside down.
Ray Spiker was the principal at Madeira High School from 2009 until he retired in 2011. Today, he learned one of the victims on Flight 5342 was one of his former students, Elizabeth Keys.
It's shocking to know that you actually knew and had a relationship with with someone who is one of the victims and their family.
The 2010 graduate made quite the impression on Spiker during her time as a student.
She was just such an outstanding student, outstanding young lady, you know, just the kind of person that we need many, many more of. What a quality young lady she was, you know, a leader around school, involved in all kinds of activities.
Key's mother, Mary, says her daughter continued her education at Tufts University, graduating in 2014 after 4 years on the varsity sailing team. She would also earn her law degree from Georgetown and was working at a prestigious D.C. law firm.
They certainly will be in my prayers, and I know it's a very, very difficult situation.
We're continuing to learn new details about Wednesday's plane crash every day, so be sure to stay connected to WOUB on air and online. For the latest news, head to our website, woub.org, or download the WOUB app. Now looking at weather, Emily, it's been a rainy day. Can we expect to see any more of that coming our way?
Thanks. Well, fortunately for us, a lot of this rain is starting to move towards the east. We do have a couple of patches still left over, but for the most part, the bulk of this system is, again, heading over the Appalachian Mountains and towards the east coast, but it does leave behind a couple of flood warnings and watches, mainly for the South Ohio and West Virginia area. Now, the flood watch we are seeing here in this darker blue area is only in effect till 8 p.m. tonight, and that's mainly because we've had a lot of that rainfall in a short amount of time, and our vegetation isn't in bloom yet, so there's not a lot of those plants to really soak up a lot of this excess water, so it's really just sitting on the ground and not being absorbed into the dirt just yet. But as more of this rainfall continues to occur as we move into the spring season, we'll start to see some of that be soaked into the ground. But for us right now, we're seeing clear skies. It's about 53 degrees, so you're very much right about it being unseasonably warm here in southeast Ohio today. Be sure to stay tuned for my full weather to take a look at what we can expect this weekend.
Thank you, Emily.
Ohio University is amping up security measures after receiving part of Ohio Governor's DeWine Campus Safety Grant. OU is receiving nearly $200,000 to cover expenses associated with physical security. Ohio University Police Department Captain Tim Ryan says the university will use the money to implement more video surveillance cameras around campus. Captain Ryan says he hopes having more cameras will discourage people from committing a crime. OUPD plans to add more surveillance cameras in highly populated areas students walk by, such as the tunnel underneath Richland Avenue and outside of Baker Center.
A homeless encampment on Athens' west side is gone after an anonymous complaint on the city website. This is a look at the complaint. There's no outdoor sleeping ban in Athens, but officials say the camp did break other laws like outdoor burning. My Sister's Place, a local nonprofit in the city, says residents shouldn't call the police just for that. They say people should instead help support local organizations that directly serve the homeless population.
Athens City Council announces it is hosting a public hearing on a rezoning ordinance along Pomeroy Road.
The proposal has received pushback from nearby residents who say this would add to growing problems along Pomeroy Road. The ordinance would change the open lot near the intersection of Pomeroy Road and Richland Avenue from R1 to R3. This would allow for multifamily homes to be built on the plot. Spire Developments is asking for the change so it can build a 50-unit complex. Residents said at a previous city council meeting, these new homes could add to existing traffic problems.
Pomeroy Road is extremely dangerous. There's a steady flow of traffic there at high speeds, with vehicles often losing control on the curve exactly where you want to rezone.
Public hearing is scheduled to take place before Monday's City Council meeting at 7 p.m. at City Hall.
Residents in the Plains may need to add a little more time to their commute. Construction on US 33 and State Route 682 interchange is scheduled to begin Monday. The project will convert the ramp intersections to roundabouts. ODOT says access to and from US 33 and the Plains will be maintained during construction, but State Route 682 East may require a detour. Construction is expected to be completed in October.
We are learning more tonight about a deadly crash in Fairfield County. Authorities say the crash occurred last night along US 33 near Lancaster. Ohio State Highway Patrol says 33-year-old Brianna Cox of Marysville was driving eastbound when she was struck by a garbage truck. The truck was driving northbound on Thorn Lane and tried to turn onto US 33. Cox was pronounced dead at the scene. The other driver was not injured. The crash remains under investigation. 2 garbage workers walked away uninjured after a trash can exploded in Whitehall. Take a look. As you can see, one of the workers had just emptied a trash can into the back of the truck, and then the explosion. Police say the sound of the blast was so loud that it set off the city's gunshot notification system. Flames can then be seen coming from the back of the truck, but the workers used a fire extinguisher to put it out. The city says an oxygen tank is to blame for the explosion.
The FDA approves the first new type of pain medication in more than 2 decades, and it's not an opioid. The drug is suzetrigine under the brand name Journavx. The new drug will treat moderate to severe acute pain, which is usually caused by injury, trauma, or surgery. It does so by preventing pain-signaling nerves from firing. That's different from how opioids work, and doctors hope that will make the drug less addictive.
Not everyone needs those potent opioids, even with moderate to severe pain. A large majority of patients need a weak opioid, and this drug is as good as weak opioid. So therefore, it can be very useful.
The most common side effects of the drug include itching, muscle spasms, and rashes. The last time the FDA approved a new painkiller was in 1998.
This brings us to the question, to what extent is this political leverage in those relationships?
Coming up, President Donald Trump plans to implement tariffs on the U.S.'s 3 largest importers. How this could impact your wallet.
We've had a warm week so far, but will this continue into the weekend? Be sure to stay tuned to Newswatch to find out.
On Masterpiece.
She won't eat. Can't work out why.
Oh, don't worry. We'll get to the bottom of it. She just needs a right good gallop, Mr. Harriet.
Carmody's back. Couldn't help but notice both beds were made up.
Mr. Farnan didn't think you'd mind sharing.
Oh, there's a reptile on the prowl.
Smuggled in from abroad, apparently, by one of the soldiers.
All creatures great and small on Masterpiece.
Sunday at 9 on WOUB.
On Masterpiece Mystery.
No! It's my neighbour. I think someone's shot him.
Mrs. Potts, I can't have you interfering.
Judith Potts.
Susie Harris.
I'm Bex Starling, the vicar's wife.
I'm trying to find out who killed my neighbour.
And you've decided to have a little poke around.
Every time I see you, there are more of you.
We're not going to stop investigating, are we?
You couldn't have just started a book club, could you?
The Marlowe Murder Club on Masterpiece Mystery.
Let's start at the beginning, shall we? I can't wait.
Back in the game, bringing the thunder, I'm making waves.
People will be watching your every move. I can handle it. Let's go.
So, what's your secret?
Things are starting to move in the right direction.
I'm coming.
Tell us everything.
Are you ready for more? Just getting started, locked on the target. Are you ready for more?
No one is going to tell me who I can or can't be.
Troubles, honey, like you wouldn't believe. Hop in.
Every day, I see the evidence of all that love can do.
Are you ready for more?
Whatever happens, we'll be together.
There's nowhere else in the world I'd rather be. This was perfect.
Right now it's about 53 degrees, and a lot of the rain that we had really upped our humidity about 80%, so it's kind of muggy outside, about the first of the season. But a lot of this rain we are having has also produced flood watches and warnings throughout most of West Virginia and a little bit into southeast Ohio. Now these flood watches that we are seeing are only in effect till 8 p.m. tonight, again, due to that rainfall that we really saw moving across the southern part of the state. Now, a lot of this rainfall was caused by this low pressure system that's sitting over us and really extending up towards the New England area. We have this warm front that's attached to it that's pulling up a lot of warm air from the Gulf, and with that, a lot of moisture creating these clouds and a lot of this rain that we're seeing. And right behind it, we have a cold front that we're going to be seeing take effect tomorrow. It's not going to be dropping us down to the 20s, but we will be seeing slightly cooler temperatures from from today, and behind that a little bit of clearing but still some cloud coverage. Now here's a good look at the way that those clouds are moving, really pulling up a lot of that air from that Gulf area, creating a lot of that moisture and the instability needed for those clouds and that rain to form. Now, in the meantime, tonight we're looking at about a 20% chance of rain possible. So again, pop-up showers, not expecting anything heavy to continue, but we'll be seeing that overnight low of 28 as we're feeling the effects of that cold front start to take shape. Now, taking a look at our radar for tonight, by the time you reach 6 a.m. tomorrow, we're not going to be seeing any rain on the radar, just some cloud coverage. For the most part, all of this system is moving towards the east. We do see a couple pop-up areas just north of central Columbus, but for the most part, that's not going to be a heavy rainfall. That's going to be more of a drizzle to a light mist. As we go into tomorrow, we're going to see that high of 41, again reflective of that cold front moving through the area. Partly sunny skies. That system's going to move away, leaving behind a couple of clouds, and the overnight low of 26. So another sort of cooler night as we move on. Now tomorrow we do also have that high pressure sitting up near the Great Lakes, and that's going to help kind of move the system further along. But we're taking a look at what's going on over the central Great Plains area, because we have a low pressure system with a warm front that's going to be taking into effect Sunday going into Monday. We're taking a look at this. We do see some rain over to the west, but for the most part, we're just going to be taking a look at some clouds. So over on Sunday, again, high of 55. That's going to be the effect of that warm front, with Monday looking at 60. And we actually have 64 on Thursday for our high, with a 60 and 70% chance of rain. We're going to see that warm up with that warm front, and then we're going to see a cool down from a cold front behind it, causing a lot of that rain. That's reflected in our Thursday night overnight temperatures and Friday during our daytime temperatures. So things are definitely going to be warming up this week. It's feeling like spring, and I certainly do love a good rain shower. It's one of my favorite things about spring, especially when things start to bloom. And I'm going to ask you guys, do you guys like a good rain shower? Are you more sunny kind of spring people?
I don't mind it. After all the snow we've been having, it was a nice little shock, but I'm definitely not opposed to it. What do you think, Ariel?
I personally like the sun. I'm ready to go take a vacation to Florida, so I say no to the rain, but it's good for the environment, so thank you.
Thanks, Emily. Now, turning to the economy, thefts from EBT cards continue to rise across the country.
EBT cards have a well-known vulnerability to skimming devices, which thieves use to drain victims' money. The federal government ended reimbursements for thefts after Congress passed a budget resolution in December. Bringing back reimbursements would require congressional action. Ohioans lost almost $15 million in EBT theft from June 2023 through December 2024.
Canada and Mexico say they've prepared the option of retaliatory tariffs on the U.S. That's after President Donald Trump says he will put a 25% tariff on imports from Mexico, Canada, and China starting tomorrow. Amy Kiley has more on what this could mean for prices.
I'll be putting the tariff of 25% on Canada and separately 25% on Mexico.
President Donald Trump says he plans to impose those tariffs tomorrow. Tariffs force U.S. companies buying foreign imports to pay a percentage extra to the U.S. Treasury. Many economists say that typically leads to higher prices for consumers.
We raise tariffs, and that's a bit inflationary. Other countries may raise their tariffs. And to the extent we keep importing from them, that's also inflation.
Canada and Mexico are some of the U.S.'s biggest trade partners, so the proposed tariffs could affect prices on all sorts of goods. For instance, experts say the cost of a new car could go up thousands of dollars. But Trump's Pick for Commerce secretary argues that won't happen.
It is just a nonsense that tariffs cause inflation.
Economists say tariffs can help domestic producers by pressuring American companies to buy from them. The Trump administration hopes the taxes will reduce trade deficits between the U.S. and its neighbors.
I think it will help our farmers, our ranchers, and our fishermen to flourish.
Trump says he also plans to use tariffs as leverage for stemming the flow of migrants and fentanyl across the southern border.
This brings us to the question, to what extent is this political leverage in those relationships? And to what extent is he actually going to fully follow through with the economic measures?
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
Next in sports, 7 action-packed TVC games in basketball that you won't want to miss.
Birds? Whoa! I said, oh my goodness, dinosaurs.
Today's birds are dinosaurs.
The skeletal similarity is enormous. The extraordinary evolutionary epic of feathers to flight and evading extinction.
This would have been a world of abundant opportunity.
Dino Birds on Nova.
Wednesday at 9 on WOUB.
You have unleashed the best storytelling ever.
Migration is freedom to Black America.
There's much about me that you don't know.
Let's go, baby.
The age of dinosaurs still continues.
You didn't know that, did you?
I think we may have solved our mystery.
All of these movements are expressions of hope.
It's better than any movie script I've ever read.
It's an incredible story.
Regardless of your stage of life, whether you're starting your first job, getting the keys to a new home, or enjoying retirement, it's never too early or too late to create an estate plan to care for loved ones and support the causes that are meaningful to you. WOUB Public Media is pleased to have partnered with Giving Dogs, a free resource for building an estate plan that fits your needs and protects the people and causes you care about. Visit WOUB.org and click the Support tab to get started today.
A second wave of migration was on the horizon. Another mass movement propelled by World War II would dwarf the first.
That journey was uncharted territory with great rewards.
My grandfather came from Sweetport, Louisiana, because he felt that he could flourish here.
I was 4 years old when I got to Detroit. That was a whole wonderful new experience for me.
Tuesday at 9 on WOUB.
Thanks, guys. I'm here at Waterford, where we have a doubleheader with both Eastern boys and girls varsity teams coming to take on the Wildcats, and we have an exciting one here for you tonight. Before we get to the games, let's start in the TBC Ohio, where we have the third place Nelsonville York Buckeyes taking on the sixth place Alexander Spartans. These two last faced off on December 13th, where the Buckeyes claimed a convincing 12-point win. NY still has a chance at the conference still, but taking down Meggs is tough. Now let's move over to Meggs, where we go to Pomeroy for the Red Hot Marauders will take on Vinton County. These teams only have one combined loss in the Ohio, and that loss was Meggs winning by 30 points over the Vikings. But if VC can win tonight, they will be tied at first with the Marauders. Now, let's go to our last game in the Ohio for tonight. The Athens Bulldogs traveling to River Valley to meet with the Raiders. The Bulldogs have improved massively and sit at fourth in conference after an overtime loss to Nelsonville York. And River Valley sits in last and is still looking for their first in-conference win. Now, let's take a second and look at the state of the whole TVC Ohio as of right now. Meggs, as I said, rolling at the top. Vinton County one game behind in second place. Then Nelsonville York at third with an outside shot to win the conference. Then we have Athens slotted at fourth, Wellston at 5, Alexander sits at 6th, and River Valley finally in 7th and last place. Now let's jump to the TBC Hockey, where reigning conference champs Federal Hockey travel to Belpre. With the Lancers losing multiple starters last season, FedHawk sits at last and is still looking for their first conference win. Meanwhile, Belpre is in need of a win to stay at second in the conference. We just mentioned second place Belpre. Now let's look at first place Southern, who are hosting the Trimble Tomcats tonight. The Tornadoes are rolling through conference play with a perfect 6-0 record, while Trimble sits second to last with one conference win and lost to Southern the last time they met. And now it's time to come back to Waterford, where in our doubleheader, we have the girls game going on right now, and state champion runner-ups Waterford can clinch the TVC Hockey tonight with a win against Eastern. Meanwhile, the Eastern girls sit in last and are looking for their second overall win. Finally, we have the Eastern boys taking on Waterford after the girls' game. The Eagles are having their best season since 2020, sitting in third place of the Hockey, while the Wildcats, who sit in fourth place, can slide into third place with Eastern if they can get a W tonight. Now, finally, let's take a look at the TBC Hockey as of right now and take a good look at this because the standings may look completely different after tonight. Southern, with a commanding 6-0 conference record, sit at first. Belpre still has a very good shot to win the Hockey at second. Eastern and Waterford will decide for third and fourth place tonight. And then Trimble and FedHawk still at the bottom of the standings. Now, guys, we have some exciting basketball, and I'm going to have to get back to the action, but I'm going to remind all of you to check out Hardwood Heroes this weekend to check out all of these games and the standings as they are updated. Guys?
Everyone was trying to figure out who is this guy, why is he so important to the Venezuelan government.
Lo único que yo tenía claro es aquí se está escondiendo alguien.
Saab met with the DEA and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. He was someone who was playing both sides.
This is a story of corruption, of kleptocracy.
Cuando publicamos ese reportaje, como ya el campanazo de que esto se podía convertir a nosotros en una historia complicada.
Tuesday at 10 on WOUB.
You can turn things around at any time.
You are more than prepared, okay? We have it in the tank.
NFTs have expanded the scope of what I'm able to do.
Something I've been trying to sell for years, sold out in 3 days.
It's like mind-blowing to me.
When I play basketball, I feel like there's nothing that could stop me.
You don't see that many people that are Asian ranked on ESPN, and I wanted to show people that I could do that.
I saw myself spiraling downhill with my health.
He went from an insane amount of pills, and now he's doing 150 miles a week at almost 70 years old.
California now possesses a state-of-the-art prison.
We were placed in solitary confinement for decades.
Let's do a nonviolent act. Let's do a hunger strike.
It's not 100%, but I'm not going to quit.
If the worst thing happens, we'll still be a team.
I love it.
We're on the precipice of a great discovery.
I love it.
Welcome.
Whoa, Nelly.
Let's set this palace
on fire.
I love it.
Welcome to the News Hour.
What does it mean politically?
Oh, fasten your seatbelt. I love it. I love it.
Delighted to hear it. You make a good team.
Groundhog Day is Sunday, which means we're close to finding out if spring is here or winter is sticking around a little bit longer.
Jeremy Roth takes a look at who has the best prediction skills.
Just in time for Groundhog Day, the weirdest of weather predicting traditions, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has released a ranking of their top most accurate weather groundhogs, and the results may shock you. NOAA ranked the weather predicting accuracies of a total of 19 still working meteorological mascots with seer of seer careers of at least 20 years. Here are your top 5. Number 5 and 4 are actually a tie at 65% accuracy between Gertie the groundhog at Illinois' Wildlife Prairie Park and West Virginia's Concord Charlie, who's never actually been seen by the public and is listed as, quote, presumed groundhog. Seems legit. We are off to a great start. Number 3, with a 75% accuracy, is Lander Lil, a groundhog statue in Wyoming that doesn't even see a shadow. It simply casts one. It's science, people. Coming in at number 2 from Georgia, and with the most Georgia name ever, is General Beauregard Lee. Clocks in at 80% accurate. Bless his heart. And finally, NOAA's top-ranked weather groundhog is New York's own Staten Island Chuck. With a whopping 85% accuracy, you might be wondering, hey, how's this jowly jabroni do it? Oh, you know what? Forget about it. What you should be wondering is, where's Punxsutawney Phil, America's most famous woolly weather predictor? Sadly, Phil barely cracked the list at number 17 with a dismal accuracy of only 35%. Gobbler's Knob's hobnobbing celebrity may have friends in high places, but when it comes to weather, all due respect, it seems he doesn't know his bristly butt from the hole in the ground where he lives. Oh, well, he always has his acting career. Or take a look at this. I'm Jeremy Roth.
Well, I don't know. What do you guys think? I know you're the expert, so we'll start with Ariel. Do you think we're moving on to winter, or do you think moving on to spring, or do you think we have a little more winter ahead of us?
I would love to say spring, but I know it's going to be winter with this weather we've been having.
I think it's got a little bit warmer. I'm going to say spring. What do you think? What insight can you give us?
I think it's also going to be spring, but I've got a lot of competition. There's a lot of runners against me. So.
Yeah. Okay, well, that does it for our broadcast this evening. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Alex and Wally.
Stay tuned for the PBS News Hour coming up next. Have a great night.
Support for PBS